The sound of rain tapped softly against the hospital windows as Emily clutched her stomach, her breathing uneven, the pain coming in waves. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled the air, the soft beeping of machines echoing down the quiet hallway. She had imagined this day countless times, the moment she would bring her baby into the world, but never like this. Her mind was spinning, her heart racing, not just from the pain, but from the shock that had just hit her. Standing at the end of her hospital bed was someone she never expected to see again, her ex-husband, Dr. Ryan Carter. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The same man who once held her hand during their happiest days was now standing in a white coat, mask pulled slightly down, eyes filled with surprise and something she couldn't quite name. Regret, maybe, or disbelief. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Of all the doctors in the city, of all the hospitals she could have been taken to that night, fate had brought her here, to him. The nurse called his name, snapping the silence in the room. "Dr. Carter, we're losing time." Ryan stepped forward, his professional calm masking the storm that flashed across his face. He hadn't seen Emily in almost 2 years, not since the night everything fell apart between them. And now, here she was, about to give birth to a child that, for all he knew, could have been his. He swallowed hard, trying to focus on his duty. But his hands trembled slightly as he reached for his gloves. Emily's eyes glistened with tears, a mix of fear, pain, and old emotions she thought she had buried long ago. The contractions grew stronger and the room filled with urgency. But beneath the medical chaos was something deeper, a quiet, unspoken tension between two people who once shared everything, now forced to face each other in the most unexpected way. As the heart monitor beeped faster and Emily's breathing quickened, Ryan looked into her eyes and said softly, "You're going to be okay." But what he did next, something no one in the room saw coming, would change both of their lives forever. The tension in the room thickened as Ryan guided the nurses through the procedure, his voice calm but his eyes betraying a storm of emotions. Emily could barely focus on anything except the pain that ripped through her body, but even through the haze, she felt his presence, steady, familiar, and confusing all at once. Memories flashed in her mind, the first time they met in medical school, the laughter they shared over midnight takeout, the promises they made before life pulled them apart. It was strange being this close to him again after years of silence. Outside the delivery room, the storm intensified, thunder rumbling through the night. Ryan took a moment to steady himself before checking her vitals. His gloved hands moved with precision, but inside, his heart ached with memories he couldn't shake. When he saw her name on the patient list earlier that night, he thought it must have been a coincidence. It couldn't be her, not Emily, but now, seeing her lying there, exhausted and scared, he realized that some coincidences weren't accidents at all. As another contraction hit, Emily clutched the bedrail, her voice breaking. Why did it have to be you?" she gasped, the words escaping before she could stop them. Ryan froze for a second, meeting her eyes. "Because I'm here now," he said quietly, almost to himself. There was so much between them left unsaid, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the love that never truly faded. But this wasn't the time for the past. He had to focus. The baby's heartbeat echoed through the monitor, steady but fast. A nurse whispered something to Ryan, and his expression shifted slightly. Emily caught it, that flash of concern that doctors tried so hard to hide. "What's wrong?" she demanded breathlessly, panic rising in her voice. Ryan hesitated, torn between being her doctor and her past. "We just need to stay calm," he said, masking the worry in his tone. But deep down, he knew something wasn't right. The baby was in distress, and time was running out. As the storm outside raged louder, Ryan faced a choice no doctor, and no man, ever wanted to make. And in that moment, both of their worlds teetered on the edge of something they couldn't yet see coming. The air in the delivery room grew heavier with every passing second. The nurse adjusted the monitors, and the rhythmic beeping filled the silence that words couldn't. Ryan's focus was sharp, but his heart raced beneath the calm exterior. Emily's breathing quickened, her grip tightening on the sides of the bed. Sweat lined her forehead and her eyes darted toward him, filled with both fear and something deeper, trust. Despite everything between them, despite the pain of the past, she trusted him now with her life and her child's. Ryan gave a quick command to a nurse, but his mind was split between two realities. The one where he was a doctor doing his duty, and the one where the woman before him was the person he once loved more than anything. He had watched her walk away years ago, carrying the weight of a misunderstanding that destroyed everything they built. But now, seeing her so vulnerable, it was impossible to keep the past buried. As he prepared for the next step, his colleague, Dr. Harris, entered the room, his tone clipped. "Ryan, you shouldn't be handling this case," he whispered firmly. "It's a conflict of interest." Ryan shot him a glare. "I'm the only one here who knows her condition. I've read her file. She needs stability right now, not a switch in doctors." The tension between them was thick enough to cut. Harris hesitated, then left reluctantly, leaving Ryan to face both his duty and his emotions alone. Emily's contractions grew stronger, and she cried out, her voice trembling. "You don't have to do this," she whispered between breaths. "You don't owe me anything." Ryan leaned closer, his voice steady. "You're wrong." "I owe you everything." The words hung in the air, heavy and unexpected. For a brief moment, their eyes locked, and all the years of distance seemed to vanish. But before either of them could say more, the monitors started beeping faster, flashing red. The baby's heartbeat was dropping. The nurses rushed into motion as Ryan's tone shifted from calm to urgent. "We're losing time," he said, his voice low but firm. Emily's tears spilled as fear gripped her. "Ryan, please," she whispered. He squeezed her hand once, meeting her gaze. "I won't let anything happen to you, or the baby." But deep inside, he knew the choice he was about to make would change everything. Again. The room buzzed with urgency. Nurses moved quickly, their voices low but tense as the monitors continued to flash. Ryan's calm voice guided them through each step, though his heart pounded louder than the machines. Emily was struggling, her breathing shallow and uneven. Every muscle in his body wanted to protect her, not just as a doctor, but as the man who once promised never to let her face pain alone. But this wasn't a promise he could make. This was a fight between life and loss. He leaned close, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Emily, listen to me," he said softly but firmly. "I need you to stay with me. Focus on my voice." Her eyes fluttered open, searching his face for reassurance. "Is the baby okay?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Ryan hesitated for a split second, the truth burning in his throat. "We're doing everything we can," he said instead. He couldn't tell her the numbers were falling. That time was slipping faster than his mind could think. Outside the room, thunder rumbled again, the storm matching the chaos inside. Dr. Harris returned with a surgical team on standby, sensing that the situation might turn critical. "Ryan, you have to make a call now," he said urgently. "We can't wait much longer." Ryan glanced at the screen, then back at Emily. Sweat glistened on his forehead as he tried to steady his breath. He knew the options, both dangerous, both uncertain. If he pushed forward naturally, Emily might not make it. If he moved to emergency surgery, the baby's chances would plummet. Emily's hand reached for his, trembling. "Whatever you do, save the baby," she said weakly. The word struck him like a knife. How could he make that choice? His vision blurred for a second, not from exhaustion, but from emotion. He had once imagined this moment so differently, the two of them smiling, holding their child together, their future bright. Now that dream hung by a fragile thread. He looked up, his voice breaking through the noise. "Prep the OR," he ordered, his tone sharp. The team rushed to move her. Emily's eyes locked on his one last time as they pushed her bed toward the doors. "Ryan?" she whispered faintly, her voice trembling with fear and something like forgiveness. The doors swung closed behind them, leaving only the echo of thunder and a choice that would decide both their fates. As the operating room doors swung shut, the world outside seemed to fade. The only sounds were the rhythmic beeping of machines and the storm hammering against the hospital windows. Ryan's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his gloves. He had performed hundreds of surgeries, but this one felt impossibly heavy. Every movement carried a weight no medical training could prepare him for. Emily's life, and the baby's, rested entirely in his hands. The team worked swiftly, following his commands. Dr. Harris monitored vitals while nurses prepped instruments. "Heart rate dropping fast," one of them warned. Ryan's jaw tightened. "We're going in now," he said. The room filled with motion, the bright lights reflecting off metal tools. Just as the first incision was made, a nurse gasped. "Doctor, something's wrong with the monitor." The screen flickered, showing erratic readings. Ryan's stomach dropped. It wasn't just Emily's vitals. It was the baby's, too. Both were slipping fast. "Get me suction now," he barked, trying to steady his shaking hands. The tension was suffocating. He could feel the sweat running down his temple despite the cold room. For a second, everything went silent. The beeping stopped. Ryan froze. His heart felt like it stopped, too. No, stay with me," he whispered desperately. He started chest compressions, his mind racing through every possible solution. He couldn't lose them. Not like this. Then suddenly something unexpected happened. The baby's heartbeat flickered back on the monitor, faint but steady. Relief washed over the team, but Ryan wasn't convinced it was over. The nurse looked up, eyes wide. "Doctor? Look!" Ryan followed her gaze and saw something shocking. The baby wasn't alone. There were two distinct heartbeats on the screen. Twins. No one had known. Emily didn't even know. The discovery threw the room into chaos. The second baby's vitals were weak, dangerously weak. They hadn't prepared for this. "We need another team in here now," Ryan shouted, his voice cracking with urgency. But every second counted, and the backup team was still several minutes away. He had no choice but to handle both himself. His heart pounded as he fought to keep Emily stable while guiding the first baby safely into the world. Then Emily's pulse dropped again. "She's crashing," Dr. Harris shouted. Ryan's breath caught. He couldn't lose her now, not after everything. With one final push, the first baby cried, piercing the heavy silence. But before Ryan could even exhale, the monitor flatlined again. Emily's life was slipping away, and the second baby hadn't been delivered yet. Ryan's world seemed to collapse into a single moment. The sound of the flatline echoed through the room like a scream. "Charge to 200!" he yelled, his voice breaking. A nurse placed the paddles in his hands, and he pressed them against Emily's chest. Her body jerked, but the monitor stayed flat. "Again!" he shouted. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he tried once more, refusing to believe this could be the end. Then, just as hope began to fade, a faint blip appeared. Then another. The steady rhythm returned. She was alive, barely, but alive. But there was no time to rest. The second baby was still in danger. Ryan took a deep breath, forcing his hands to stop shaking. The room was tense, the team silent, waiting for his next command. "Let's bring the second baby out, now," he said firmly. Every movement was precise, every breath measured. Minutes felt like hours. And then finally, a soft cry broke through the tension. The baby was small, fragile but breathing. Ryan exhaled a long, trembling breath, his heart pounding with relief. He looked down at the two tiny lives he had just brought into the world, and at Emily, pale but safe. For a brief moment, everything was still. The storm outside had quieted, and the lights flickered softly over the room. The nurse smiled faintly. "Two healthy babies," she whispered. But Ryan didn't smile back. His eyes were fixed on something, or someone, at the doorway. A man stood there, soaked from the rain, his face pale with shock. It was Mark, Emily's current husband. He had arrived just in time to see Ryan cradling the newborns. The air between them grew heavy with unspoken words. Mark's voice trembled as he said, You saved them." Ryan nodded silently, unsure what to say. For a second, it almost felt like closure, until one of the baby's monitors beeped unexpectedly. Ryan rushed back, checking the readings, but then he noticed something else, something that froze him in place. The babies shared the same rare birthmark on their wrists, the same mark Ryan had since childhood. His breath caught. It couldn't be. He looked back at Emily, tears forming in his eyes as realization struck. The second baby wasn't Mark's. One of them was his. Ryan stood frozen, the world around him fading into a blur of hospital lights and muffled voices. His eyes moved from the babies to Emily, who had just begun to stir. She looked exhausted but peaceful, unaware of the truth that had just unraveled before him. When she opened her eyes and saw Ryan holding the newborns, a faint smile appeared on her face. A mix of gratitude and something deeper, something unspoken. Ryan gently placed one baby in her arms, the one with the birthmark, and their eyes met for a long, silent moment. No words were needed. They both understood. Mark stepped closer, confusion still written across his face. "What's going on?" he asked quietly, glancing between them. Ryan hesitated, his heart pounding, but he knew this wasn't the time for secrets. He took a slow breath and said softly, "Emily, I think we need to talk." "Later," she nodded, her eyes glistening. The weight of the moment pressed down on all three of them, but Ryan pushed it aside for now. The priority was making sure Emily and both babies were safe. Hours later, as dawn broke and the rain outside turned to soft sunlight, the hospital room felt different, calmer, almost peaceful. Emily rested quietly, both babies beside her. Ryan stood by the window, staring out, lost in thought. He had come here as a doctor doing his duty, but fate had written something entirely different for him. When Emily finally woke again, she looked at him and whispered, "Thank you." "For everything." Ryan smiled gently and replied, "You don't need to thank me. Just promise you'll take care of them, both of them." Mark, who had stayed silent most of the time, finally spoke. "You saved my family," he said, his tone soft but full of emotion. Ryan nodded, though his heart ached with the truth he couldn't share. He walked over to the babies one last time, brushing a finger over the tiny birthmark before stepping back. As he left the room, he looked over his shoulder one final time. Emily's eyes followed him, filled with tears, gratitude, and something bittersweet. Ryan smiled faintly, knowing that sometimes life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you need. Outside, the morning light washed over him, a quiet reminder that even after heartbreak, hope always finds a way to begin again.